Hello, welcome to Organic Chemistry Lectures by Dr. Sheetal Bhatkurki. In this lecture, I will be dealing with stereoisomerism. At the end of the session, students will be able to explain what is stereoisomerism, will be able to identify the configuration and conformations and also R and S configuration, and will be able to predict the stereochemistry of the product in a chemical reaction. Stereochemistry plays a very important role in organic synthesis. Since it is not an easy task to synthesize only a rigid-handed or only a right-handed or a left-handed molecules when both could be potentially be formed in a chemical reaction. The chemical synthesis of molecule with precisely the right three-dimensional structure is often a huge experimental challenges. In practice, in practical terms, chiral synthesis is an essential component of virtually all the drug synthesis. Another type of stereoisomerism, which is based on mirror image relationship between the molecule, is not easily visualized, as the relation between geometric isomers and a bit of practice is likely to be needed before we see the relationship in three-dimensional space. However, molecular configuration plays a vital role in its biological functions. The undesirable responses can range in a severity and can result in death with respect to medicinal drugs, which definitely under the FDA has strict guidelines that must be followed before a drug is approved for sale to the public. Every potential drug must first undergo animal testing followed by 3 separate clinical trials involving human patients, phase 1, phase 2 and phase 3. Phase 1 involves a number of patients and phase 2 involves several hundred patients and phase 3 goes in thousands of patients. The FDA will only approve drug that has passed all the 3 phases of clinical trials. Even after receiving approval to be sold, the effect of a drug are still monitored for potential long-term adverse effect. In some cases, a drug must be pulled off from the market after the adverse effect are observed in a small percentage of population. One such example is Vioxx, an anti-inflammatory drug that was heavily used in the treatment of osteoarthritis and acute pain. Vioxx was approved by FDA in 1999 and instantly became a very popular, providing its manufacturing Merck & Co. With over $2 billion in annual sale. In 2004, Merck had to remove Vioxx from the market because of concern that the long-term use increased the risk of cardiac arrest and strokes. This example highlights the fact the pharmaceutical safety cannot be absolutely guaranteed. Nevertheless, the development of pharmaceutical has vastly improved our quality of life and longevity, and the positive effects significantly outweigh the rare example of negative impacts of such drugs. The effect of any particular drug are determined by a host of factors. We have already seen many such factors, including the role of pharmacophore, conformational flexibility, acid phase property or the pK or the pKb properties. Out of all, the three-dimensional structure of the compound and their characteristics is arguably one of the most important factors to be considered while designing a drug and assessing its safety and efficacy. In particularly, when we are exploring for the new drug, each compound has to have differ from the other each other in three-dimensional spatial arrangement of their atoms and also their properties. Such compounds we called as stereoisomers, and we will be exploring the connection between stereoisomerism and the drug actions in this series. Before we begin with the stereochemistry, let us understand few terminology. Isomers. What are isomers? Isomer come from a Greek word iso mean and meros, meaning made of the same part. That is, isomers are compounds that are constructed from the same atom. That means they have same molecular formula, but still they differ from each other. We have already seen two compounds of isomers, constitutional isomers and stereoisomers. Constitutional isomers have same molecular formula but differ in the constitution, that is order of connectivity of the atoms are going to be differing. For example, if we take into methoxymethane and ethanol, both of them have molecular formula C3CH2OH, but the arrangement is such that one ends with a alcohol and other becomes a ether, and having a varied physical and biological properties, biological as well as chemical properties. Biological, if we look into the boiling point of a methoxymethane, it is minus 23 degrees centigrade, whereas the boiling point of an alcohol is around 78.4 degrees centigrade. So these are the set of constitutional isomers. Looking into the stereoisomers. Stereoisomers are those molecules which have same molecular formula and constitution but differ in the spatial arrangement of each atom. Example, 1,2-dimethyl cyclohexane. The 1,2-dimethyl cyclohexane, if we look into, there seems to be that they are the same molecules. Structure wise they differ in the arrangement of the methyl group. In one compound, both the methyl groups are on the same side, therefore the designation cis comes there, and in another the methyl groups are on opposite side, therefore the designation comes as trans stereoisomers. The cis isomers exhibit groups on the same side of the double bond, while the trans isomer exhibit groups on the opposite sides of the double bond. The two diagrams above here represents different compounds with different physical property, because the methyl groups represented in a cyclic structure are at different positions. Sorry. Basically, we classify isomers into two types, structural or constitutional isomers and stereoisomers. I just now said what is constitutional isomers. Constitutional isomers can have rotation around the single bond, and also we can classify them as amine inversions too. Geometrical isomers do come under the example of conformational stereoisomerism. Geometrical isomers are further classified based on the position of the bonds, or based on the position of the group across a double bond or a cyclic structure. If they are on the same side, then I do call them as cis, and if they are on the opposite side, I call them as trans geometrical conformational isomers. Whereas the other half of the stereoisomers are classified as configuration. Configuration, how they are represented in the space. Further, we classify them into optical isomers. Optical isomers are further can be classified as enantiomers and diastereomers. We will see what are enantiomers and diastereomers in coming up slides. Further, we also classify diastereomers as mesocompound and epimers. Geometrical isomers. We know that when a double bond is formed, how a double bond is being formed there? It is formed by the overlap of the two p orbitals between the atoms or carbon atom, right? Rotation about the CC double bond would effectively destroy the overlap between the p orbitals. Therefore, CC double bond does not experience free rotation, unlike the CC single bond character at a room temperature. Chemist uses cis and trans terminology to describe the disubstituted alkene even when the two substituents connected to the pi bonds are different from each other, as seen in the example of cis 2 octene and tranexamic acid. The cis and trans terminology does not apply for disubstituted alkene in which two substituents are connected to the same positions. In such cases, the double bond is not stereoisomer and should not be labeled as cis and trans isomers. Any object can be viewed in a mirror, revealing its mirror images. For example, a pair of sunglasses has a mirror image and is identical to the actual object. The object and its mirror images are said to be superimposable. This is not going to be the same case if we remove one of the lenses. The object and its mirror images are now different. One pair is missing the right lens while the other pair is missing the left lens. In this case, the object and its mirror images are non-superimposable. Many familiar objects such as hands are non-superimposable on their mirror images. A right hand and a left hand are mirror images of one another, but they are not identical. They are not superimposable on one another. A left hand will not fit into the right-handed glove and a right hand will not fit into the left-handed glove. Objects that are not superimposable on their mirror images are called chiral objects. From the word Greek chiral. Chiral means hand. All the three-dimensional objects can be classified as either chiral or achiral. Now, chiral molecules are non-superimposable on the mirror images, whereas achiral molecules are superimposable on their mirror images. The most common source of molecular chirality is the presence of a carbon atom bearing 4 different groups. There are 2 different ways to arrange 4 groups under a central atom carbon. The 2 arrangements are non-superimposable mirror images. Consider here this example which has a non-superimposable mirror images. Now, when I place a mirror here, then both of the molecules are not going to be superimposable. They are non-superimposable mirror images. The hydrogen will not overlap with the hydrogen of this, right? Instead, it is overlapping with the CH3CH2. Similarly, this CH2CH3 is overlapping with this H. By any means, there is no coincidence of both the CH3CH2 overlapping with one another or the hydrogens overlapping with one another. That's why they are non-superimposable mirror images. And they represent 2 different compounds. They differ from each other only in the spatial arrangement of the atom, and therefore they are stereoisomers. In 1996, the IUPAC recommended that a tetrahedral carbon bearing 4 different groups to be called as chirality center, which is also called as chiral center, stereo center, stereogenic center, or asymmetric carbon. These all are the names of the chirality. Chiral center, stereogenic center, or asymmetric carbon. Chiral center is one which is having 4 different groups and which has a non-superimposable mirror images. Like examples are also hands, key, shoes, etc. They result into enantiomers. They result into 2 molecules which are enantiomers and are optically active. Achiral molecules are those which are lacking the chiral center or the stereogenic center. There is presence of a plane of symmetry. They are superimposable on its mirror images. That means they are two identical. For example, if I place a nail in front of a mirror, both the nails are superimposable. It might be a ball or it might be a bat. When kept its mirror and when we bring a mirror in between, then the mirror image is the superimposable image. Therefore, they are achiral molecules and they are optically inactive molecules. They are identical. For example, we can see that in this example, these both are identical there, right? Let us see a few of the example of chiral centers. If we take into this molecule in which this is a stereocenter or a symmetric carbon because it has 4 different groups. The high priority group being bromine, then ethyl group and a methyl group and a hydrogen. Similarly, here the nitrogen is the chiral center. Nitrogen, this is a chiral center because it has 4 different groups. It has CH3 twice. Then we have CH2CH3, CH2CH3 and CH3. So both of them are chiral molecules. Whereas when we talk about this, circled is the stereocenter. 1, 2, 3, 4. Whenever there is a double bond or a triple bond, we need to multiply the bond. We need to consider it as a single bond and then 2. Therefore, circled are the stereocenters. This is also a stereocenter. This is also a stereocenter. Asymmetric carbon atoms are examples of chirality center, which are examples of stereocenters also. Enantiomers. When a compound is chiral, it will have one non-superimposable mirror image, which is called as enantiomers. So enantiomers are those molecules which are non-superimposable mirror images. That means they are optically active molecules. The compound and its mirror images are said to be pair of enantiomers. The word enantiomer is used in speech in such a way that the word twin is used in speech. When two children are a pair of twins, each one is said to be the twin of other. Similarly, when two compounds are pair of enantiomer, each compound is to be enantiomer of the other. A chiral compound will have exactly one enantiomer, never more or never less. But as the stereogenic center increases, so do the pair of enantiomers also increases. In this molecule, we can see that this is the enantiomer of this, vice versa. So when I place a mirror in between both the images, then both of the images are non-superimposable mirror images. We can see that this atom, that is bromine atom, in this side is on my left hand side, and if I go and place the same on this, then the bromine atom will come towards this left hand side, whereas the bromine atom with this molecule is on my right hand side. Therefore, they are non-superimposable mirror images. Properties of enantiomers. Enantiomers have same boiling point and melting point and density, that is their physical properties are same refractive indexes. They rotate the plane of polarized light in the same magnitude but in opposite directions. Different interaction with other chiral molecules. Active site of enzyme is selective for a specific enantiomer. For example, taste buds and scent bud receptors are also chiral. Enantiomers may have different smells. Optical activity. Enantiomers exhibit identical physical property. For example, when we compare the melting point of These enantiomers, that is carbon or carbon, has melting point 25 degrees centigrade and boiling point is 231 degrees centigrade. And yes, carbon also has the melting point 25 degrees centigrade and 231 degree centigrade. This should make sense because physical properties are determined by intermolecular interactions, and their intermolecular interactions of one of the enantiomer are just the mirror image of the intramolecular interaction of the other enantiomers. Nevertheless, enantiomers do exhibit different behavior when exposed to a plane of polarized light. To explore this, let us first quickly review the nature of light. Plane of polarized light. Electromagnetic radiation is comprised of oscillating electrical and magnetic field. Composed of electrical and magnetic field. Notice that each oscillation field is located in a plane and these planes are perpendicular to each other. The orientation of electrical field, which is shown in red color here, is called polarization of light wave. When many waves of the light are traveling in the same direction, they each have a different polarization, randomly oriented with respect to one another. When a light passes through a polarizing filter, only one photons of a particular polarizations are allowed to pass through the filter, giving rise to a plane of polarized light. When a plane of polarized light is passed through a second polarizing filter, the orientation of filter will determine whether the light passes through or is blocked. So we can see the light is passes through or the light is blocked. So polarimeter, in 1815, French chemist Jean-Baptiste Biot was exploring the nature of light by passing plane of polarized light through various solutions of organic compounds. While doing so, he discovered that solution of certain organic compounds rotate the plane of polarized light, and these compounds were therefore called as optically active. He also noticed that only some organic compound possess this quality. Compounds lacking this ability were said to be optically inactive. The rotation of plane of polarized light caused by the optically active compounds can be measured by using a polarimeter. The light source is generally a sodium lamp which emits light at a fixed wavelength of around 589 nanometer called the D line of sodium. This light then passes through a polarizing filter and the resulting plane of polarized light continues through the tube containing a solution of optically active compounds which causes the plane to rotate. The polarization of the emerging light can then be determined by rotating the second filter and observing the orientation of the orientation that allows the light to pass through. So source of optical activity, in 1847 an explanation for the source of opticality was proposed by French chemist Louis Pasteur. Pasteur investigation of tartarate salts led him to conclude that the optically active is a direct consequence of a chirality. That is, chiral compounds are actively active while achiral compounds are optically inactive. Moreover, Pasteur noted that enantiomers, that is non-superimposable mirror images, will rotate the plane of polarized light in equal amount but in opposite directions. Specific rotation. When a solution of chiral compound is placed in a polarimeter, the observed rotation, the symbol is represented by alpha, Greek word alpha, will be designated on the number of molecules that the light encounters as it travels through a solution. If the concentration of the solution is doubled, the observed rotation will also be doubled. The same is true when the distance that the light travels through the solution, that is the path length. If the path length is doubled, the observed rotation will also be doubled. In order to compare the rotations of various compounds, scientists had to choose a set of standard conditions by varying standard concentration, maybe 1 gram per ml, with a standard path length 1 dm for measuring the rotation. It was possible to make a meaningful comparison between the compound, and the specific rotation for a compound came into the light, which is defined as the observation rotation under the standard condition. It is not only always practical to use concentration of 1 gram per ml while measuring the optical activity of a compound, because chemists often work with the very small quantities of a compound, that is in milligram rather than in a gram scale. Very often optical activity must be measured using a very dilute solution. To account for the use of non-standard condition, the specific rotation can be calculated by the following ways. Specific rotation alpha is equal to alpha into C into L, where alpha is the specific rotation, alpha is observed rotation, C is the concentration measured in grams per milliliter, and L is the path length measured in decimeter, where 1 dm is equal to 10 centimeter. In this way, the specific rotation for a compound can be calculated from a non-standard concentration or path length. The specific rotation of a compound is a physical constant, much like a melting point or a boiling point. The specific rotation is also sensitive towards temperature and the wavelength, but these factors cannot be incorporated into the equation because the relationship between the factor and the specific rotation is not a linear relationship. In other words, doubling the temperature does not necessarily double the observed rotation. In fact, it can sometimes cause a decrease in the observed rotation. The wavelength chosen can also affect the observed rotation in a non-linear fashion. Therefore, these two factors are simply reported in the following format, that is alpha, concentration of alpha raised to the delta raised to T, where T is the temperature and delta is the wavelength. Now for R2-bromobutane, the specific rotation is minus 23.1, whereas for the S2-bromobutane it is plus 23.1. Notice the specific rotation of enantiomers are equal in magnitude but are in opposite direction. Therefore, the minus and the plus. A compound exhibiting a positive rotation is called dextrorotatory, while the compound exhibiting a negative rotation is called levorotatory. In this example, the first enantiomer is a levorotatory and therefore is called minus 2-bromobutane, while the second one is a dextrorotatory and is designated as plus 2-bromobutane. There is no direct relationship between the R and S of the nomenclature and the sign of specific rotation plus and minus. This is very important to understand. The description R and S refer to the configuration, that is three-dimensional arrangement of a chiral center which is independent of the condition. In contrast, the description plus and minus refer to the direction in which the plane of polarized light is rotated, which is necessarily dependent on the conditions, concentration and the path length. As an example, it has been indicated here with the R2-bromobutane, both minus and plus rotations. Drawing an enantiomers, the two simplest way to draw an enantiomer is using a perspective formula and a Fischer projection. In perspective formula, two of the bonds to the asymmetric carbon in the plane are on the paper and one bond is a solid wedge protruding out of the paper. Fourth bond as a hatched bond is extending behind the paper. So this is coming out of the paper and this is going away from the paper, whereas the bromine and the halogen are on the paper. So this is the perspective formula. So this is one enantiomer, this is the other enantiomer. Note again, both of them are non-superimposable mirror images. Another most convenient form of writing is the Fischer projection formula. A representation of a 3D molecule at a flat structure where a tetrahedral carbon is represented as two crossed lines. So we can see that it is represented as a two crossed lines. The vertical line is going back behind the plane of the page and the horizontal line is coming out of the plane of the page. So this is my vertical line which is going out of the plane and the horizontal line is coming out of the plane of the page. It is going behind and this is coming out of the page. So, and the center point is the carbon, which is a asymmetric carbon. It's as good as the horizontal lines are hugging and the vertical lines are moving away. So this is the Fischer projection formula, which is widely used in writing the enantiomers. Fischer projection rule. In Fischer projection rule, the horizontal bonds to the chiral centers are always above the plane and the vertical bonds of the chiral centers are below the plane. The horizontals are always hugging you, whereas the verticals are moving away from you. The configuration of a chiral center or a chiral molecule in a Fischer projection formula is obtained by comparing to its configuration of a reference compound whose common name is generally glyceraldehyde. So glyceraldehyde contain a carbon atom bonded to 4 different groups, that is hydrogen, aldehyde group and hydroxy group and a CH2OH group. So it exists as either of the enantiomers. The enantiomers of glyceraldehyde in Fischer projection formula are drawn accordingly to the following conventions. First and foremost, arrange the carbon chain vertically with the most oxidized carbon at the top. Place the carbon at the chiral center of the plane of the paper. It is C2 in the glyceraldehyde because C2 is bonded to 4 groups. The CHO group, CH2O group extend behind the plane of the page, and the hydrogen atom and the hydroxyl group extend up and out of the plane. Project these 4 groups onto the plane. The carbon atom at the center is usually not shown in the convention. It is located at the point where the bond line crosses. The vertical line projects away from the viewer and the horizontal lines are towards the viewer. A Fischer projection formula is a 2-dimensional representation. It might appear that if we are lifted one formula out of the plane, rotated at 180 degree around the carbon backbone, we would obtain the structure of the enantiomer. Fischer projection formula can be drawn for any pair of enantiomers. Follow the proper conventions of what to place on the horizontal line and the vertical line. This formula implies that we know the configuration at the chiral carbon. However, true configuration could be determined by early chemists because there were no way to determine the arrangement of atom in the space. Therefore, Fischer arbitrarily assigned a configuration to one member of the enantiomer pair of glyceraldehyde. The dextro enantiomer of glyceraldehyde, which rotates the plane of polarized rays in clockwise with plus 13.5 degree, was assigned to Fischer projection formula with the hydroxy group on the right hand side, and its enantiomer had a hydroxy group on the left hand side. Further, Fischer called the compound D-glyceraldehyde, the mirror image D and L-glyceraldehyde respectively. The mirror image minus glyceraldehyde corresponds to structure which has the hydroxy group on the left hand side and which showed the plane of polarized light to the counterclockwise, that is minus 13.5 degree, and he called it as L-glyceraldehyde. page number. Assign the configuration of the chiral centers in the following compounds. So this is the chiral center here because it has 4 different groups: hydrogen, hydroxy group, a carboxylic acid and a alcohol group at the bottom. Therefore this is the chiral center. Now hydrogen and hydroxy groups are on the plane, therefore can be represented here in this way on the plane, and both of them are going away from the viewer. These are on the viewer side and these are from the away from the viewer side. Therefore can be written in this form and has all possible ways of representation. Cann-Ingold-Prelog system. Here the two enantiomers has to be identified. Each enantiomers we can individually designate the terms and which is given by CIP rule, that is Cann-Ingold-Prelog rule. The first step of this system involves assigning priority to each of the 4 groups attached to a chiral center. So identify the chiral center and assess the 4 different groups for that chiral center first thing, and then prioritize them by numbering 1, 2, 3, 4. The highest priority, the most highest number starts from 1, 2, 3, 4. So depending upon the molecular weight or the reactivity status, the numbering can be done here. The atom with highest atomic number is assigned as the highest priority, while the atom with the lowest atomic number can be assigned as the lowest priority. For example, consider the enantiomer, this enantiomer here is this one. In this, the chlorine is high priority, and the second high priority comes as the oxygen with the CH2CH3 group, and then CH2CH3 group as the third priority and the hydrogen as the fourth priority. So of 4 atoms attached to the chiral center, chlorine is the most highest in atomic number, therefore gets number 1 priority compared to the oxygen, priority 2 compared to the 3 where it is carbon atom, and 4 is the hydrogen atom. After assigning priority to all the 4 groups, we can rotate the molecules so that the 4th priority is directed behind the page. It should be directed behind the page in this manner. So if we see here, it is in the front page, it is in the front because my chlorine is in the back side here in this example. Therefore hydrogen will occupy the dark wedge. So when it is a dark wedge, that means it is towards the viewer, so it has to be placed away from the viewer's point. So we need to rotate in such a manner that it is moving away from the viewer's position. So rotate, and once we rotate such that the 4th priority is directed behind the page on a dash edge, then we look to see if the sequence is 1 to 3 is a clockwise or a counterclockwise. So now if we see here, the sequence is now 1, 2, 3 in this manner. That means chlorine is here, ethoxy is here, and ethyl group is here, and hydrogen is here. So if I start from this position 1, 2, 3, so I am able to move my left hand steering. The steering movement is towards the left hand side, that is counterclockwise. Therefore I designate it as S. I designate it as S, and its enantiomer will definitely be having R configuration. Will be having R configuration. In that case, you do interchange. Any two groups you can interchange. That is, 2 interconversions has to be done. One interconversion will lead to a wrong assessment. Therefore, 2 interconversion has to be done to attain the other enantiomer. A counterclockwise sequence is designated as S. In Latin it means sinister, meaning left, and the clockwise is designated as R, which means in Latin it is rectus, means right. Therefore R and S configuration has to be assigned for any chiral center, and to do that it is always appreciable to bring first write it into a Fisher projection formula see whether the lowest priority group is moving away from the viewer, or bring it in such a manner that it is vertically bottom, and then rotate based on the priority 1, 2, 3, how the rotation goes, whether it is going clockwise, that is R, or whether it is going counterclockwise, that is S. So this is the most appropriate way to assign a configuration to any stereogenic center. So this involves 5 steps. Basically, identify the 4 atoms directly attached to the chiral center, first step. Secondly, assign a priority to each of the atom based on its atomic number. The highest atomic number receives priority 1 and the lowest receives priority 4. If 2 atoms have the same atomic number, move away from the chiral center looking to the first point of the difference. When constructing, list out to compare. Remember that a double bond and a triple bond has to be treated as 2 separate single bonds. Then rotate the molecule so that 4th priority is on the dash line, that is going beyond the plane of the page or moving away from the viewer. And fifthly, determine whether the sequence is clockwise, that is R, or counterclockwise, yes. Then you can assign the configuration. So in this molecule where there is 2-amino 3,3,4 dash dihydroxy propionic acid 1, 2, 3 propionic acid, dihydroxyphenyl propionic acid. So this is actually a phenolic, and it is having phenyl group, right, having 2 hydroxy groups. So dihydroxy, position of hydroxy group is 3 and 4, and it has a propionic acid here, right, exactly at the position is the 2-amino group for the propionic acid. Therefore, the overall name of the molecule is 2-amino 3,3,4 dihydroxyphenyl propionic acid. So, this is used in treating the Parkinson's diseases, and now we need to assign the chiral stereogenic centers for it, as well as assess the R and S configuration. So, if we look into identify the 4 atoms directly attached to the chiral centers. So, any chiral center which is having different atom has to be marked as a chiral center here, any carbon. So, this is one carbon which is having 4 different chiral centers. Again, this one is also having 4 different groups to this chiral carbon. Again, this is a chiral carbon where there is again different centers. The 4 atoms are N, C, H. Nitrogen has the highest priority, so it is assigned as the priority 1 here. So, for this chiral center, this is the 1 priority, and then this is the second priority because we will consider it as CO twice. Therefore, second priority. Then the third priority is this group which is having a phenyl group, CH2 phenyl group, and the 4th priority is the hydrogen. Now, if we see, then definitely we will have to rotate it, because the 4th priority group is on the front side, the H is on the front side, it needs to go beyond out of the plane. Therefore, we need to rotate it in such a manner that the 4th goes into the behind the plane, right. So, it should be in a dashed line, right, and once we do that, the sequence comes out to be as 1, 2, 3 counterclockwise. So, the configuration at this carbon is S configuration. The configuration at this carbon is the S configuration, right. So, always remember, if you are getting confused, then you can indicate it very clearly with the molecular weight and then C. Priority is very essential, right. So, assigning, as I said, priority 4 substituents accordingly to this, perform 2 allowed manipulations of Fisher projection formula to place the lowest priority group on a vertical position, either on the top or a bottom. I always prefer to keep it at the vertical bottom. Vertical bottom is the most preferred one. Rather than keeping top, try to bring it to the vertical bottom. Clockwise, the stereogenic center is assigned as R, and the counterclockwise is assigned as S. So, take up this example. S bromobutane and R bromobutane. So this designation is in both the cases the ash line is behind, so you don't have to do any conversions or any interconversions. Directly number them bromine base 1 because of its high molecular weight, which is being 89 and or 91 as the isotope, and then ethyl group CH3 CH2, then methyl group and hydrogen. Therefore I am able to move the steering towards my left hand side, that is counterclockwise, therefore it is yes, and I am able to move now clockwise, therefore the designation is R. Yeah. Now, it is very essential to know the configuration of any drug molecule. So, backend, please work on that. The drug molecule, this is S-ibuprofen. So, first identify the stereogenic center. This is a stereogenic center. Identify and assign based on the where the lowest priority group is. Similarly, for ibuprofen also, why it is R-brufen. R-brufen, please indicate it, right? Write and see, then you will be able to understand. Similarly, we have Timol, R-timol as well as S-timol, which is an anti-tumor drug, right? Anti-tumor agent isolated from the marine organisms. Then we have naproxen. Naproxen is also widely used as a liver, I think is used in a liver disease. Not very sure. Alright. Enantiomeric excess. One of the enantiomer when present in excess can be easily identified and separated also. Before that, a solution containing a single isomer is called as optically pure or enantiomerically pure, right? The other enantiomer is entirely absent. Only one enantiomer is present. But when a solution contains two enantiomers, they might be in the equal proportion. They might be in a one might be dominating, whereas the other might be the minor product, right? For example, in SN1 reaction, when we see, right, we end up into a racemic mixture there, and in that racemic mixture, the retention configuration is having more and is a major product compared to the inversion configuration, that is backside attack, attained through the backside attack. So they go in 60-40 ratio depending upon the substrate. Actually it works. More the bulkier substrate, then we expect that the backside attack is going to be more compared to the front side. So it depends. In simple, in SN1 we do end up into a racemic mixture because both enantiomers are obtained there. So when we obtain both the enantiomers, we need to identify which both the enantiomers as racemic mixtures, and when it is present in a racemic mixture, then it is optically inactive. Enantiomers are optically active, but when there is both enantiomer present, then plus and minus of the rotation of the plane of polarization cancels, therefore they become optically inactive. So enantiomers, when they are present together, we call it as a racemic mixture, and that racemic mixture is optically inactive, and it becomes really difficult to separate optically inactive. When a pole of polarization passes, all the positive and negative degree cancels, resulting in 0 degree there, right? But when a solution contains unequal proportions of enantiomers, that is racemic mixture is unequal there, one of the enantiomer is a major product and the other is the minor product, then separation can be done. Optically active will not become 0, so we can separate it with the help of, if we have a polarimeter. For example, if I have a S-butanol containing 70% R-butanol and 30% S-butanol, I have a butanol, I have a racemic mixture of butanol, 2-butanol, which contain R as 70% and S as 30%. In such case, there is 40% excess of R enantiomer. The remainder is a solution solution is a racemic mixture of both enantiomers. In that case, EE percentage will account to 40%. So in simple, enantiomers can be separated. Enantiomers can be separated by converting them into diastereomers because diastereomers do not have same physical and chemical properties. Enantiomers have same chemical properties, therefore it becomes really difficult. I can't separate them by simply distillation. No, it becomes really difficult because they have the same boiling points. Similarly, they do have the same melting points. So it is not easy for me to separate through as they have the same physical property. But diastereomers have different physical properties. So convert an enantiomer to a diastereomer and then separate it. Right? We'll see that little later. So in simple, till now we have seen what is stereochemical relationship between enantiomers. Now let us concentrate what are diastereomers also. Right? So we can see here a pair of enantiomer exists here. This is 1R and 2S. Whenever there is two designations indicating that there are two chiral centers and both the chiral centers has to be assigned with the R and S configuration. That is relative configuration, absolute configuration has to be given. Right? So we write absolute configuration here R and S. So here also same thing, we have written the configuration. So these are two are pair of enantiomers and these two are pair of enantiomers. Whereas these two pair of enantiomer are diastereomers to this, vice versa. They are diastereomers to this. So they become diastereomers in nature. They are enantiomers, but when we compare them with these two are diastereomers to these two, vice versa. So the relationship is a pair of enantiomers can have a diastereomers. Similarly here, three chiral centers are there, each of them are designated. Therefore now I would have how many sets of enantiomers? 4 sets of enantiomers. So 4 sets of enantiomers are shown there. Whereas diastereomers, again I have 4 sets of diastereomers. So this is a diastereomer to this. This is a diastereomer to this. This pair is diastereomer to this. This pair is again diastereomer to this. So this pair has 3 diastereomers pairs. Now how do I assign it? Depends upon what is the chiral center, how many chiral centers I have. So depending upon the chiral center I can assign it. So we always count that maximum number of stereoisomers or stereocenters is equal to 2 to the power of n, where n can be 1, 2, 3. In this case n is equal to 3 here. So 2 to the power 3 means how much? 8. I am able to write 8 isomers. 8 isomers, out of which 4 of them, or I can say that 4 of them are enantiomers, 4 pairs of enantiomers I have, and similarly I have diastereomers which are 4. Similarly, this is the relationship that we write. So they are enantiomers to one another. You can see anti 2s and 3r. Anti 2r, 3s. They are enantiomers. They are enantiomers. So diagonally they are diastereomers. They are diastereomers. So off diagonally they are enantiomers and on diagonal they are diastereomers. So this is the relationship we write, right? So individually we can write each of the stereocenters of molecule and assign R and S configuration, then write its counterpart and then see what all counterparts are possible. Are they enantiomers or are they diastereomers? Enantiomers are super non-imposable mirror images, whereas diastereomers are, there is nothing like they are superimposable mirror images. They are superimposable. They can be superimposable, what I mean to say. Similarly, cholic acid, which has 11 chiral centers, so 2 to the power 11 leads to 2048 stereoisomers. So one is a natural cholic acid, this existence. So many isomers are there, so we can expect so many kind of enantiomers and diastereomers within them. Many pairs of enantiomers and diastereomers within them. Let us see one more example here. Identify whether the pair of compounds are enantiomers or diastereomers. So you have a chiral center here. So write down the chiral center there, right? After writing the chiral center, assign the values, assign whether R and S they are, and based on that you can say whether they are end up into same enantiomers or they are end up into a distereomers. Here it is by appearance it seems to be like they are distereomers. They are distereomers. Distereomers, because all the dashes that are shown here, right, redrawn as the wedges, and all wedges are redrawn as dashes. And remember that the two compounds can only be enantiomers if all their chiral centers have opposite configuration. Then one chiral center has the same configuration in both the stereoisomers. Therefore, these stereoisomers are not the mirror images. They are not the mirror images. When they are not the mirror images, then they have to be definitely distereomers. Therefore, they are distereomers. 2,3-dihydroxybutanoic acid, if we take into, what are all the possible R and S combination of these two chiral centers in the molecule? We have 4 combinations. So 4 stereoisomers can be written. 4 stereoisomers in such a manner where C2 has R, R, S, S possibility, whereas C3 has R and S possibility. So R with R is one pair, R with S is another, S with R is another, S is another. So 4 stereoisomers, 4 combinations. Similarly, we have 2-hydroxybutanoic acid, again 2-hydroxybutanoic acid. What is the relationship between these two isomers? 2R, 3R and 2S, 3S. This and this are enantiomers. This and this are enantiomers. So now 2R, 3R and 2S, 3R, what they are? They are distereomers. So I can plug them into a diagonal and off diagonal. I can write here 2R, 3R and 2S, 3S. They are enantiomers. Now 2R, 3R has distereomers, which is 2S, 3R. 2R, 3R is again distereomer with 2R, 3S, vice versa. 2S, 3S has enantiomer 2R, 3R, whereas 2S, 3S has 2 distereomers, that is 2R, 3S and 2S, 3R. So when we write it in, diagonally and off diagonally, we will be able to express the relationship. Mesocompounds. Specifically, a compound that exhibit reflection symmetry will be a chiral, even though it is chiral center. Such compounds are called as mesocompounds. A family of stereoisomers containing a mesocompounds will have a fewer than 2 raised to n stereoisomers. For example, here given to us is a 1,2-cyclohexadiol. The structure has 2 chiral centers and therefore we expect that it would have 2 to the power 2, that is 4 stereoisomers. So 4 stereoisomers are written here, and these are a pair of enantiomers. But these two diagrams represent the same compound. They represent the same compound because when I pass a plane of symmetry across this axis, then both the chiral centers are same there. The pair of enantiomer meets our expectation, but the second pair is actually one compound only. It has reflection, symmetry is there. Therefore, it is a mesocompound. Whenever there is a plane of symmetry, then it results into mesocompound. The compound is not chiral in that case, and it does not have any enantiomers. It does not have any enantiomers. Let us see an example. Draw all possible stereoisomers for 1,3-dimethyl cyclopentane. So, identify the stereocenters first, right? After identifying the stereocenters, write the number of possible stereoisomers. There are 4 stereoisomers in this case because we have 2 stereocenters. Therefore, 2 to the power of 2 is equal to 4. Therefore, we have 4 stereoisomers. First, look at the pair of enantiomers, and the other pair is going to be meso. This pair is going to be meso, because again there is a plane of symmetry there. Therefore, we end up only with a pair of enantiomers and one mesocompound. So 3 isomers. Practically there are 4 isomers, but we end up saying that there are 3 because both are the same. Whether they are on the front side or on the back side, they are optically inactive molecules, which we call them as meso compounds. The most common source of molecular chirality is the presence of a chiral center, one or more chiral center. However, presence of a chiral center is not necessary condition for a compound to be chiral. Indeed, there are many such examples where chiral compound lack chiral centers. Substituted biphenyl, like the one shown here, also exhibit severely restricted rotation about the bond, and that connects the 2 aromatic rings. So restricted rotation is indicated here. When this bond rotates, the substituent experiences steric interaction that prevent the molecule from adopting a fully planar conformation. Such conformation is too high in energy and cannot form, not even for any instant. This locks the molecule into one of the 2 possible conformations here. One of the 2 possible conformations. Each of these conformation is non-superimposable mirror images of the other. Each of the conformations are non-superimposable mirror image of the other. So these conformations have enantiomer relationship. Since they cannot interconvert, it is possible to separate these enantiomers, each of which we observe to be optically active. They are called as atrope isomers, because they are stereoisomers that results from the hindered rotation of single bond. There are well-known examples of atrope isomers. Another common example of atrope isomer is binap. Binap is nothing but bis diphenyl phosphine 1,1- by naphthalene. Binap has 2 enantiomeric bonds as depicted here. S and the R'. Because of the restricted rotation across the phenylic group here, therefore results in 2 enantiomers. They are S and R enantiomers. Bond connecting the naphthalene ring exhibits severely restricted rotation. Steric interaction prevents the molecule from adopting a planar conformation, which is too high in energy and cannot form by any instance. This locks the molecule into one of the 2 possible conformations, which have a R configuration and a S configuration. Therefore, they are enantiomer in relation. Indeed, R binap and S binap are each regularly used in the preparation of chiral catalysts, and selectively they play an important role in attaining the required stereochemistry of the product. Allenes. Compounds that contain 2 adjacent double bonds are also called as allenes, and they are not another common class of compound. They are another common class of compounds that can be chiral in nature, even after having absence of chirality center. Notice that each carbon atom is sp hybridized because of having using two different p orbitals. One p orbital is used to form CC bond on the left side and the other on the right hand side. Since the central carbon atom is using 2 different p orbitals, and since these p orbitals are perpendicular to one another, the compound is endowed with an inherent twist. That is, the R group on the left hand side are drawn on straight line, while the R group on the right hand side are drawn in the wedge line and dashed line. So we have both dark wedge and ash wedge there, that is coming in and coming out of the page. If R groups on the left are different form from each other. Say R is not equivalent to, they are not equal, right? But all the R's are different there. Then, and if R groups are on right are also different from each other, then allyne will be chiral in molecule. But if they are same, say for example R is equal to CH3, then they lose the chirality. But if they are different, R is equal to CH3 and R is equal to CH2, CH3, they are different. Therefore, they will be chiral in the chiral as shown here. And when they are as shown here, when they are chiral, because one of R is H and the other R is CH3, and therefore they are going to be now enantiomers because they are non-superimposable mirror images. So no chirality center, but they are enantiomers. So allynes are an example of lack of chirality center, but are chiral in nature. So resolution of enantiomers, as I said that we always end up into a racemic mixture, right? When we end up into a racemic mixture, it becomes really difficult to separate them. Right? The resolution of enantiomers can be achieved by a variety ways. That is by using chromatography, we can separate the enantiomers. But we separate it via crystallization as well as by chromatographic techniques. First developed method was by crystallization by Pasteur in 1847, wherein he separated the tartaric salts by naturally occurring tartaric acid, optically active compounds found in the grapes and easily obtained during the wine making process. So he did it, and one of the stereoisomers was found in nature, yet Pasteur was able to obtain a racemic mixture of tartarate from the owner of the chemical plant. The tartar salts were also allowed to crystallize, and Pasteur noticed that the crystal has two distinct shapes that are not superimposable mirror images to each other. Using a pair of tweezers, he then separated them out physically into two piles. He dissolved each pile in water and placed each solution in a polarimeter to discover that what is their specific rotation, and to his observation they had opposite degree of rotation, and he concluded saying that they are enantiomers in nature and not superimposable. So that was done. Now chiral resolving agents are well used to resolve the racemic mixtures. When racemic mixture is treated with a single enantiomer of another compound, the resulting reaction produces a pair of enantiomers. For example, I have a pair of enantiomer here, and the resolving mixture that I am going to use is an acid. The pair of enantiomer are basic in nature, so I am using an acid as a resolving agent there, right? So I do end up into salts. So salts are now distereomeric in nature, and therefore I can easily separate them. Right? Diastereomers have different physical property and therefore can be separated by any conventional method, by crystallization or by distillation. Depends on the diastereomers, what diastereomers I am obtaining. Right? So once diastereomers salts can be converted back to the original enantiomers by treating with the appropriate base there. I used acid, so I am going to remove that salt by using a base there. Thus, I can separate. Right? So malic acid is said to be resolving agent. In that, it makes it possible to resolve enantiomer of 1-phenyl ethylamine. So this is 1-phenyl ethylamine, wherein I am using malic acid as the resolving agent and converting into diastereomers. Further, I use a base and get back my enantiomers. So this is your resolving. How do we resolve? Even many chiral column chromatographic techniques are available today to separate by using a different adsorbent medium. Right? So when we pass through traditional column, they travel at the same rate because their properties are identical, and it really becomes difficult. But if I use a chiral column chromatography, then I can easily I can resolve it. The enantiomer interact with the adsorbent differently, causing them to travel through the column at a different rate, and I can easily separate them. So chiral column chromatography is widely used today to separate the enantiomers. E and Z notations. Whenever there is a high priority groups on each of the carbon on the same side, we designate it to be on the cis. Cis is always designated by letter Z, whereas when they are on opposite side, then we designate it with the E. E is on the opposite directions. Cis and trans. So the Z it's a German notation where it says as Zumal, and E is again a German notation which says as Entagin. Entagin means opposite, whereas Zusammen means together. Zusammen and Entagin. So in summary, I spoke about what is stereochemistry and why stereochemistry plays an important role in drug-like molecules, and I indicated the R and S notation through the Can-Ingold-Prelog rule. I also wrote open chain, and then I indicated perspective projection formula and Fisher projection formula before I start applying the CIP rule. In CIP rule, high priority has to be given for that particular group which is having more molecular or highest molecular weight. And I also discussed about the constitutional isomers, and I discussed about the mesocompounds and how a racemic mixture can be separated. So I covered all of them. Thank you.